Hello, my name is Vincent, and I want to thank y'all for your patience in me getting this reading out. For all the folks out there with Libra placements, whatever they are, if you feel like this reading resonates, then great. If it doesn't, also great. There's plenty of other readings out there. I've already pulled a card for you, Libra, just to kind of get a sense of where the pieces lay as we get started here. I'm going to pull more cards, but we have the Five of Swords, and in this deck, this card is called Defeat. It is associated with the first decan of Aquarius, traditionally ruled by Venus. And, obviously with the theme of the card, topics surrounding the idea of social discord, social disharmony are in play. It's interesting that Venus is associated with this decan because Venus is actually associated with the opposite of that, which is harmonious social interactions, equitable and equal social dynamics where everyone is kind of on the same, not the same page necessarily, but at least respects one another and interacts with one another with diplomacy and with respect. So this theme kind of coming up to start the reading off, I'm almost wondering if you're dealing with a situation where there is, where things are kind of calling into question the social harmony of a certain dynamic, whether it's with one individual or multiple individuals. And it's making me think of, I've been watching this show recently, I mean, it's been a little while, where the idea of trying to fit into a social hierarchy that is not necessarily set up for the benefit of the person who's trying to get in. The levels of snobbery are at play. Like, yes, you have money and you have influence, but you're not old money. You're not the original aristocracy. You don't have regal royal blood in your line, so therefore we can't accept you. And it's kind of like this idea of, okay, well, if you're not going to let me into this group, I'm going to go off and start my own. Like, no big deal. But yeah, it's just this sense of needing to find commonality, a shared space within which you can work together to achieve specific goals. Usually goals with long-standing implications because, it is still Saturn sign Aquarius. We're thinking about the larger picture. We're thinking about how these interactions, these dynamics are going to play out in the future. We're not just looking at the small minutia of the moment to moment in the present. We're looking forward, and we're testing the longevity of these, I'm hearing these pacts, these agreements. Okay. We have the next decan showing up. This is the Six of Swords, middle decan of Aquarius, ruled by Mercury. Okay. Now, this to me connects back to what I was saying about like testing the pacts, testing the longevity of certain agreements. I'm hearing like pen testing, like for any of you that are in like cybersecurity. But very much this idea of sort of planning out the moves on the chessboard before the moves are made, seeing the long game, I think is what it's called. Not getting distracted by the little movements and paying attention to what each movement implies for the future. This can also be a certain level of co-creative exchange. Like I'm seeing like what's the word? Like a conference of people where they're discussing how best to move forward with a particular project or a situation. And they're sort of auditing one another to make sure that everyone's ideas are sound, and discarding the notions, or discarding the approaches that aren't going to necessarily benefit the situation in the long run, and holding on to those things that will. There's very much this idea of like testing out the equations. Like, I'm seeing somebody writing out on a chalkboard like this long string of equations, and these people are kind of coming in and dialoguing with the person writing, and throwing out specific numbers or sequences to plug into the equation to reach a solution. And they're each there to kind of say to the other, like, no, that one's not going to work because X, Y, or Z. It's just this really interesting social environment that I think you're finding yourself in right now, where everything's very practical, everything's very methodical, everything is being thought through and tested before it's being launched into the real world in some degree. Like, I feel like these things are sort of happening behind closed doors. Like, there's some sort of collaborative environment that you find yourself in. Like, maybe you guys are preparing to launch something together, and maybe you kind of were pushed into this situation as a result of some kind of defeat or some kind of denial. Like, maybe your proposal was denied by one company, or your let's say you gave a manuscript to a certain publisher, and they declined to publish your book. And so now this kind of has the energy of like, well, if you're not going to publish it, then I'm going to start my own publishing company and do it myself. Like, I'm going to self-publish, and I'm going to have my own team of friends helping me to edit the mistakes, and to streamline this, because regardless of whether or not I have your support, this thing is getting done. I'm going to go off on my own and make it happen for myself. And if you're not going to be there with me, then that's fine. You didn't stand up to the test. And maybe now you'll be exposed to other people who will stand up to the test, and who you can rely on in times of need. And I think it's kind of fun to be like, I'm just feeling a lot of kind of excitable energy interacting with these different people, and trying to make this project come together. You're building friendships and bonds that I think are going to withstand the test of time. They're going to stand up against Saturn's onslaught. And I think each of you will benefit each other in the long run. We'll see what else comes through. We have the Three of Wands. This is the middle decan of Aries, ruled by the Sun. And I see this as a need to... This is like... How do I word this? When I'm talking about the project, like, it needs to move forward regardless of who's there to support it. It's like the topics that are covered in this manuscript, in this book of yours, or the intentions behind working on this and then putting it forth into the world, come from a noble place, or come from a place of yes, asserting your identity and your selfhood, like leaving your mark on the world to a certain extent, but also providing a fundamental spiritual service. Like, maybe maybe whatever it is has nothing to do with the metaphysical or the spiritual at all, but on some level it does fill a need, a spiritual need, whether or not that's the intention behind it. And I think part of the challenge here is finding a way to help people see the value that you're bringing forward with this. I feel like it can be kind of a challenge to market yourself and to network and to ensure that people are kind of seeing what it is that you're envisioning and what your hopes are for this thing. Um, and that's something that having the collaborative environment can be supportive of, because everybody knows somebody, and everybody has a slightly different approach to things. So by bringing these different viewpoints together in trying to formulate how best to present this goal, this project, this book, whatever it is, like that's what's going to help it achieve success in the long run and have far-reaching impact. Because I think fundamentally this is something that you want to be at play on the world stage to a certain degree. Like, you have big ambitions, big goals. This Three of Wands, like I'm thinking of like Alexander the Great, like going out and conquering the world. But as a challenge, it's just making sure that you're interacting with the right people, and that you're auditing yourself and auditing your attempts to market yourself and market this project. Like, I feel like that's going to be the most important part, is making sure other people can perceive what, can pick up what you're putting down, so to speak. Okay, you have Saturn's card, like, immediately showing up. And when Saturn comes up, it's very much asking us to draw from lessons of the past and asking us to take stock of the fundamentals, the elementals, the very basic structure of what's at play here, and making sure that everything is sound and stable and made of durable materials, or like the code has been audited and there are no, like, the syntax is all appropriately arranged and utilized, and there's no breaks in the code, and everything is neat and tidy and enclosed and functioning, most importantly. Within the context of the other cards that have come through, I think also this idea of like editing, kind of how I was talking about the book. If take this as an analogy too, if it's not literal, like making sure that there's no grammar issues, that formatting is correct, that the spacing is correct, the font is right, like all these little basic fundamental things that, although seem minor, actually have huge impact and implications. Like, this is where the environment is right now, is making sure that these things are accounted for and are adjusted as necessary. And with the universe or the world card, this is in the position of the past. So I'm also thinking of, like, maybe you've finished a certain certification course, or you went to school and earned a degree, or you had a certain position at a job that you got a lot of experience from, and now this is you kind of branching off and doing your own thing, turning over a new leaf, starting a new entrepreneurial sort of endeavor, or starting at a new company or in a new position within the company that you're already in, working on a new project. Like, this is very much like the wheel has turned and you are now in the next iteration of the present, I guess. and where the future goes from here is going to be very much within the context of everything that you've gathered from your past experiences. So don't discount those things. Don't try to discard previous approaches just because it may seem like they won't apply here. Like, there is value in every experience that you've had, and you can apply that value to what you're working on now. We're going to pull a couple more cards. Okay, we have the Princess of Wands, and this is in the position of the future. Now, this to me does connect back to that idea of sort of branching off on your own, doing something entrepreneurial, taking on an independent project, having your own ambitions and goals, and making the first leap, the first step into the trust fall, so to speak, the leap of faith. The Princess of Wands is sort of like the budding ambitions. Like, I've made the decision to leave my previous employer because I want to work on something that is totally my own, a creative project of my own. I'm going to self-publish, this is the beginning of you really embodying a more confident and assured version of yourself, where you're aware of your ability to attain your desires by your own effort. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that wants to come through. It could also be that you're interacting with a fire sign, Aries, Leo, or Sagittarius, or that you will be, and that this person is going to help provide a little oomph to the situation that you're working within at the moment. Okay, we have the Seven of Swords, sort of at the crown of the reading. This is the next deck in Aquarius, so we have like the full Aquarius spread here. I'd be surprised, or I wouldn't be surprised if the star card came out, because it's like Aquarius is just like, hey. But with the Seven of Swords, the last decan of Aquarius, it's ruled by the moon. This is where we're really sort of establishing a more fundamentally emotional bond with the work that we're doing, the project that we've been endeavoring on. We have established for ourselves, I guess, our motive behind what we're doing. With the card being named Futility, I mean, I think it's interesting that this card has kind of landed itself at the top of your reading as like something that you're aiming for, something that you're working towards, where your ambitions, your hopes, and your desires are kind of landing. I feel like maybe this has a little bit to do with the fear of what's the word I'm looking for. I'm hearing like lack of recognition in my head, but there's like a different word that has a slightly different meaning that I'm trying to get across. I guess it doesn't really matter. It's more like a sense of a lack of self-worth, of like blending into the background, of not really making an impact. And I feel like this is almost like I'm seeing it as like a pair of glasses. Like, you know how people have like the rose-colored glasses? Like, this is the opposite. This is like gray, monochromatic glasses that sort of saps the life out of everything. And I feel like this is a layer of self-doubt, or a layer of self-deprecation that inhibits you from fully embracing what it is that you're working towards. Like, this is standing in the way of you really fully pursuing and also being open to achieving success with your ambitions. I feel like up until this point, maybe you felt like you need to sort of sneak around and do things outside of, the public eye in some form, or outside of the workplace, which is, I think, interesting. Like, I'm seeing somebody like taking home some of their work in order to pursue their own projects when they're in their home environment, like working on their own projects, but like doing it in a way that's very like secretive, like nobody knows that you're working on this thing, and like that kind of coming from a place of I guess of self-doubt, or of fear that if you do sort of publicize what you're working on, it's just going to be sort of meekly received, like it's not really going to make much of a splash and it's just sort of going to lose momentum and putter out. Um, and I feel like there is an element of necessity to staying outside of scrutiny, of keeping things to yourself to some degree. I know we've been talking about like collaborative environments and like working with multiple people, but I feel like it's been a process to getting there. Like this is kind of a new stage that you're finding yourself in. Previously, it's been very much like happening behind the scenes, and you've been afraid to maybe voice it and express it to other people because you're not sure how they're going to respond to it, or if they're going to, basically tell you that you're crazy or that, it's not going to work out, and you're worried, or you were worried that was going to sort of feed into your own self-talk, which I think to some degree agreed with those voices, even though you may have not heard those voices from anybody else because you didn't share things with anybody else. It was more you sort of superimposing your own expectations of what you expected other people to, how you expected them to respond to what you were putting forward. And so it kind of kept you close and guarded. And then now you're just kind of breaking out into this new stage where you're like, you know what, I'm gonna try this thing and I'm gonna own it. I'm gonna allow myself to be confident in myself because I've seen the work that I can do. I know that it's worthwhile. I know that I bring value to the world, and so now I'm going to do that, and I'm not going to be afraid. And if somebody questions me, I'm going to, I guess, learn how to defend myself because this is new territory for you. You have the Princess of Wands is like the beginnings of this sort of energy, the beginnings of self actualization. There's still hiccups, there's still things that need to be worked on, there's still holes in the confidence, so to speak, but she's going to learn how to navigate all that and build up her strength as she goes. And it's okay to take the training wheels off and fall a couple of times. It's going to help you regain your balance and learn how better to control it. And this is kind of the situation that I think you're finding yourself in right now. The launch. The first launch after removing the training wheels. Okay, we have the Aeon at the base of the reading. And I always forget, I believe this is the equivalent to the Judgment card. To me, I think what this card is communicating is a need to acknowledge that no matter how insignificant the choices that you're making right now may seem on the surface, and no matter whatever self-talk that you have going on inside your head that's sort of belittling or taking the meaning and significance out of your day-to-day occurrences and out of the incremental work that you're doing, it's kind of like a need to step back from that a little bit, because I think as time progresses, you're going to realize that incremental change is still change, and it's still amassing power for you, and it's still, I think, the more momentum you sort of give to this pursuit of yours, or this ambition of yours, the faster it's going to start moving. And the initial portion, yeah, it's difficult. There's a lot of growing pains. There's a lot of struggle and strife that you have to push through. I mean, I'm hearing the birthing canal is tight, but once you get out, it's like the entire world begins to open up to you, and you are afforded with the opportunities that are equivalent to the work that you're putting in, if that makes sense. The universe is kind of meeting you where you are. If you've sown the seeds of success by being persistent and by being careful and thorough and diplomatic with others, you have a lot of bridges that are available to you to cross to access assistance or access new resources or access reach, like networking, like kind of how we're going back to the whole marketing idea of like making sure that people know who you are and what you're bringing to the table. If you've done the work necessary to lay the foundation for this, I think that's sort of where the universe is going to meet you and say, okay, now that you've done this, here's the equivalent opportunity that's available to you because of what you've done here. You've laid the foundation for a great partnership with this very particular, well-connected person who's going to provide you with the resources and the people that you need to make sure that this is a success. Like, that's kind of what I think this card is communicating in the context of everything else that we've talked about. So in short, I think as long as you're being, like I said, methodical, thorough, auditing yourself, auditing your work, and making sure that you're reaching out and collaborating with others so that they can also help to audit and catch anything that you might have missed, and then even catch what they themselves might have missed amongst each other. Really testing the integrity of this project and this goal, whatever it is, making sure it's planned out, and then not being afraid to move forward with it, pushing through any self-doubt, pushing through any resistance from the outside to sort of champion this thing, because I think it's worthwhile. I think it is the culmination of a lot of work, even throughout your entire life, things that might have seemed disconnected or not at all relevant to whatever this project is. I feel like it's all sort of meeting and coming together and is actually relevant to what you're working on. It's going to add something, kind of like how I was saying, all of your past experiences lending value to what you're putting forward, what you're creating. So with that being said, I think that about sums up what I'm getting from these cards today. But I'm going to wish you all the best, Libra, and take care. I'll see y'all soon.